So I want to talk about common sense, critical thinking, and being distracted. Now, the reason I mention this is because now, you see on social media, people are getting all excited. Oh, Trump, every time he says something, it gets reported and then people accept it as fact. It's not the way it works in real life. I could say something, and if you accept it as fact, doesn't really make it any more true if it's a false statement, correct? But we're going back to this issue of, well, taxes for people who earn less than $200,000 a year, they won't pay any taxes, right? So let's use a little critical thinking here. He also said that he won't tax millionaires, which, if he did, we would have more services, right? But let's just skip that whole social thing, leftist, socialist, communist argument that people make. Now, if you're not taxing those who make less than 200,000, but you're taxing those that make a million, then our entire tax system is based on those getting to earning between 200,000 and $999,999.99. Does that make any sense to you? Of course not, because he throws things out there and then people run with it and they don't take 5 seconds to think, wait a minute, does this make any sense? Of course, the counter argument is, well, the terrorists, right? The terrorists that you see in that disaster, the terrorists are going to pay for all this. It's going to wipe out the entire system. Well, we don't need the IRS and we don't need to tax people anymore. Okay, now I'm really confused because if the terrorists are supposed to compensate for getting rid of personal taxes, then why aren't the people over $200,000? Why are they being taxed? And apparently the millionaires are not. So why are we going to be prejudiced against those who make 200,000 to 999? Da, la, la, la. Could you explain that? Of course not, because there's no logic to it and there's no critical thinking involved if you just accept what Trump says and then you think, oh, great, I don't have to pay taxes, but you realize that system isn't going to work. So, like they say, he threw red meat and you guys grabbed it, you snatched it, and now you're all happy for it. What has really happened? Well, besides, you can't have a tax system that you only tax people between 200,000 and almost a million or one penny short of a million. The guy who makes 200,000 is going to negotiate with his employer and say, bring me down to $199,000. I don't want to get paid taxes. Why would I want to pay taxes on that? But you see, that's the critical thinking. That's the common sense that you say, this doesn't make any sense. Now, here's another thing. Why keep talking about it? He's mentioned that 100 times over, right? Why not just do an executive order? He's done hundreds of executive orders, I think over 120, if I remember correctly, in less than 100 days. So if that's the case, besides the fact that probably most of them are illegal, some of them are memorandums, which I like to call propaganda, because they really have no meaning. It's just here's a memorandum and it means nothing. But with that being the case, why not just do an executive order right now, getting rid of personal taxes? Why not? I don't understand. We've done so many illegal executive orders. What's adding one more to the list? This goes back to DOGE. In a second, anytime Trump says it or Elon Musk, everyone gets all excited. Oh, if you don't like Musk or you didn't support Trump, you shouldn't get the $5,000 DOGE check. I'm still waiting for the $5,000 DOGE check. I don't understand why an executive order hasn't been done on that one either. It would just take 5 seconds, just do an executive order. There's executive orders, come on, banning law firms, but not the $5,000 DOGE check. Oh, we add that to the $5,000 of you having a child, and then what, we're rich all of a sudden? Yeah, none of this makes any sense. By the way, $5,000 to have a kid, is that going to cover everything? Because I'm more concerned about medical costs and how that's the number one reason people end up filing for bankruptcy. But yet, you people just run with this information. Oh, no taxes. I make less than $200,000. So that's great for me. I don't have to pay taxes. And if you just think about it for 5 seconds, you'll realize that makes no sense whatsoever. Zero sense. There's no logic to being able to do that. And the reality is, this issue with the tariffs, let's be clear. Tariffs make you poorer, not richer. It is, in essence, a tax. Now, let's explain this really simple so that you understand how tariffs work. I buy a product, right? I sell whatever. I sell, what do I have here? I sell pens, right? Now, to get that pen here costs me $1. So what am I going to do? I'm going to sell it for $2 because that's how I make my profit in my business. The problem is now that pen is getting taxed. Let's make it 50 cents. So now that product that is $1.50 just to get it here, and I'm not even including advertising and everything else, just getting it over here went up 50 cents. Do you think I'm going to cut into my profit margin of 50 cents per pen? No. Guess what I'm going to do with the pen? I'm going to increase it 50 cents. So now the pen is 250. Who paid for the extra 50 cents? It wasn't me, because I need to keep my business afloat. I need to pay my employees. I got to pay the warehouse, internet, lights, insurance, workers' comp, all those things that a business owner has to deal with. You think by taking off 50 cents from each product, he's able to keep the lights on? No. So they just pass it on to you. That's it. That's how the economy works. That's how tariffs work. That's how businesses profit. See, the fact is, businesses only exist for one reason and one reason only: to make money. And so if they're going to start losing money somehow, they need to pass that on to the consumer. That's your tariff. So while we have executive orders tariffing the crap out of everybody around the world and destroying the global economy, you mean to tell me the president has the power to do that, but doesn't have a power to send you the $5,000 dose check already and get this done and over with? No, but he keeps mentioning it, and then you people get all excited about it. And by the way, what are you getting excited about? Socialism? Isn't that exactly what the right has always been complaining about? Where you don't want to offer these services, you don't want people to pay for their student loans, but it's okay to give us $5,000 dose checks? Oh, I get it. You're going to argue that these are savings. Okay, so the guy who makes $500,000 a year is going to get $5,000 the same way the person who makes $15,000 a year is going to get $5,000. That makes sense? No, that also doesn't make sense. But you see, it doesn't have to, because they're not going to do it. See, they just want to feed you the red meat, and then you're going to run with it and post on social media. If those people who hate Trump shouldn't get the $5,000 dose check, etc. And that's fine. If it makes you feel better and it gets you through the day to post those things, by all means. But the reality is, it's not based on any reality. It's definitely not based on common sense. And so these savings, by the way, I suggest you look into it. Elon Musk started with $2 trillion, just like that, without even looking at a book or speaking to a forensic accountant. Which, by the way, you think some guy who's a coder at the end of the day is going to understand the complexities of the US global economy and be able to just cut off two trillion just like that? No, they have a special field devoted just to that. They're called forensic accountants, who can literally just go through the system and figure it out. See, that's what their job is. So Elon Musk, he's great at what he does, but he's not a forensic accountant any more than he's a bankruptcy lawyer. And I'm not a coder. So you see how that works out? But besides that issue, he went from 1 trillion to 150 billion now. Just like that. 2 trillion, 1 trillion, 150 billion. I suggest you look up the numbers. They're nowhere near that. They're 10% of that. Okay. And when you think about which is less than actually 1% savings overall, when you think about the destruction of the economy to save 1% of what we have seen here of the total budget, that's why you have forensic accountants, not coders. You see how that works out? So a little critical thinking will get you a long way. And if you still think you aren't going to pay taxes on $200,000, and I haven't seen yet that executive order, let's just suppose hypothetically it happens. Do you know what comes after that? Total destruction of the economy. Because again, you cannot put the entire tax system on those who make $200,000 up to $1 million. There's no logic to that. And for that, you don't have to be a forensic accountant. So all I can tell you is do your research. And after you've read what some people say, some people write, some people video like me, then apply critical thinking and say, does that make sense? And then start to dissect it. And the more you dissect it, instead of just regurgitating that information, because by the way, just getting information that you read from somewhere and throwing it back out doesn't make you smarter. If anything, it's just another form of plagiarism. It's critical thinking to then say, this will work or will not work. And so as long as they keep telling you you're going to get your $5,000 dose check, where's the executive order? You're going to continue to believe it. And then they're distracting you from something else, like your due process disappearing. The only thing that's disappeared faster than due process in this country is 6 trillion from the stock market. Take care of yourselves, because what's coming, unless things change, and even now, if things were to change immediately, top global economists are saying a recession is unavoidable. Maybe it's not for the whole year or term, but we'll get hit with one. And if things don't change, then all I can tell you is start practicing at home, working on your quadriceps and your core, because you're going to have to get good at standing in line. Think about what I said. Take care of yourselves. Be prepared financially. And critical thinking. I'm going to close out with something my mom would say, and it makes a lot more sense. It's a lot funnier in Spanish. My mom was extremely sarcastic. La cabeza no es solamente para aguantar el pelo. Now, what does that mean? It means your head is not solely just to hold your hair.